I wish to recognise and pay my respects to the generations of the local Aboriginal people of the Gutjinburra clan of the Bundjalung Nation, on whose land we work, meet and study. Over thousands of years, the traditional custodians of these lands, the Aboriginal people of the Bundjalung Nation, have lived and derived their physical and spiritual needs from the forests, rivers, lakes and streams of this beautiful valley. I am mindful that within and without the buildings, the land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to my research proposal. Does open classroom or flexible learning environments impact literacy outcomes of primary school age students? My research proposal aims to identify if open classroom or flexible learning environments impact the literacy outcomes of primary school age students. This particular research topic has stemmed from my experiences as a pre-service teacher being involved in both conventional style classrooms as well as open floor flexible learning environments during my professional placements. As an emerging educator, it is of great significance that I partake in a meaningful research project that potentially could impact how I teach in the future. New South Wales Education Standards Authority explicitly states that classrooms should incorporate safe and diverse learning spaces for all students. This includes forms of differentiation. These flexible learning environments are designed to allow students to work in a space where they can move freely and work collaboratively. The research is important for our future. These open floor or flexible learning environments have been a hot topic of late, with media expressing their concern for this style of learning. This is important as the education for our children is often a highlight in media coverage. This is where we want to be striving for the best evidence-based practice in all our Australian schools. As education in Australian primary schools continues to evolve, it appears that more and more schools are adapting the innovative framework that embraces these flexible learning environments despite the controversy. It is for these reasons that I would like to contribute valuable research into how classroom environments are directly impacting our students' education and possibilities for further research and the impact for change in the future. My overarching research question is, does open classroom or flexible learning environments impact the literacy outcomes of primary school age students? From this question, the following sub-questions were developed. How does the learning environment positively or negatively impact literacy outcomes? What are the impacts of learning in an early stage 1 class compared to a stage 3 class? How does a flexible learning environment directly impact focus areas of the English syllabus, for example, vocabulary or reading fluency? So what does the literature say? Whilst there has been an abundant amount of research done in international schools in regards to this topic, it has not been extensively researched in Australia. Not only were the limitations to Australian schools, but also the direct impact the classroom environments have on literacy outcomes. In review of these articles, 4 concepts were found to be prominent, including the well-being of teachers and students, educational outcomes, improving literacy, and the benefits of flexible learning environments. It was here that I found the gap in literature. So what has the research found so far? The well-being of both the student and teacher in open class or flexible learning environments appears to have been a concept somewhat researched to date, however, has not come to a definitive conclusion as to whether it is beneficial and/or a sustainable way of learning. In a study conducted by Travis, 2001, it was found that the individual time between student and teacher was increased in the open class format. This is a concept that could be seen as a positive implication to having open class learning. Fry and Addington, 1984, put forward that social and problem-solving skills were higher than those in comparison. This aspect is important to note as today's educational emphasis appears to be highly focused on problem-solving skills, social ability, and critical thinking and capability, as explicitly stated by the New South Wales Education Standards Authority 2023. In contrast, Mealings et al. 2015 conducted a recent study in Australian schools in Sydney, where the demographic of sample selection was based upon similar index of community socio-educational advantage scores. The research took the average score as the focus selection point. This is an important detail in the research as it can be comparable to other schools with those similar scores and applied in the wider Australian educational system. There are a number of interesting points found in Mealing's research that conclude towards negative outcomes in student performance, specifically in speech outcomes. The study focused on how noise levels impacted learning and productivity in different classroom types. Specifically relating to the speech outcomes in kindergarten classes, these open floor settings were well above the recommended acoustic level, impacting not only that particular class, but also adjacent classes. This research paper denotes that there has not been extensive research conducted in regards to how this directly correlates with Australian schools, and more research is required. However, it does conclude with wider research predominantly advising against these classroom formats. Regarding the improvement of literacy in primary school age students, research has been conducted in isolation of improving the literacy outcomes, not in correlation with open classroom or flexible learning environments. Another interesting research point proposed by Smith and White 2022 questioned whether the classroom architecture impacted student learning outcomes and well-being. Again, highly relevant to the ever-changing and evolving classrooms in Australian schools today, this research concluded that flexible and purposeful furniture in a classroom did have significant positive impacts on student outcomes. Summarizing the findings of the literature shows that there is still significant opportunity to research the benefits and disadvantages of how these classroom designs correlate to improving education. It is clear that there is still great uncertainty as to whether open floor or flexible learning environments are best practice for our education system. Naturally guided by the literature, this research will fall under a post-positivism paradigm, using a mixed method approach incorporating both quantitative and qualitative designs. Qualitative research provides a deep understanding of human behavior and interaction, allowing analysis of cultural and social implications that directly relate to the purpose of the research, whilst quantitative research uses numerical and statistical data to form a result or test a hypothesis. Using the mixed method approach allows a holistic understanding of the research problem, with the current research already signifying that there is opportunity to enhance our understanding of how these classroom environments directly impact student ability. Concurrently taking these results from a personable and quantifiable approach seems appropriate. The purpose of using qualitative methods such as observation, interview, and survey techniques during this research would look at how the environment impacts the educator's role and ability to teach in such an environment. Incorporating the quantitative research provides purpose and direction to experimental approaches, producing statistical results. Taking the ethnographic approach to qualitative data collection would be as follows. Observation, observing and note-taking. What is the environment like? How is this impacting the learning? Interviewing, using interview processes with teachers and teacher aides to attain a deeper understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of teaching in an open floor or flexible classroom. Surveying, utilizing computerized surveys that can be distributed to the whole school, including principal, learning support, teacher aides. What are their views on the open floor or flexible classroom? Experimental approaches to quantitative design will be incorporated to receive and analyze numerical and statistical data, including literacy results and outcomes, collecting data from multiple sources including NAPLAN, check-in, classroom tests, interventional approaches such as pre and post tests within a cohort, This may run over the term, year, or entirety of primary schooling. This is yet to be determined. Statistical analysis of data from survey results. The initial phase of this research will begin with the qualitative method of observation, which will then continue to run concurrently with the quantitative methods. Ethical consideration is an essential part to research, as all research will encounter some form of ethical disruption. The three principles of ethical consideration include benefit, respect, and justice. In relation to this particular research question, my ethical consideration anticipates the benefit of working towards a well-functioning, evidence-based approach to our educational environments in primary schools across Australia. To engage in this research, schools and individuals will remain anonymous and will only be included in the study if willing to do so. Informed consent, utilising an information pack outlining the requirements, length and obligations of the study, will be provided to every individual willing to partake. Equal distribution of research burden and recruitment equality is an essential consideration of conducting this project. Ethical risks that potentially may arise include disclosure of information from a child, for example, neglect or abuse, disclosure of unsafe environments within a school setting. This research will undergo the institutional ethical process, obtaining relevant consent forms, legislative processes, and code of conduct. Other ethical considerations include obtaining permission to be on premises of a school, obtaining permission to include Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people, obtaining permission to use Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander land. In summary of this research proposal, it is clearly apparent that the gap in literature surrounding the influence of how classroom environments, specifically the open floor or flexible learning environments, has on literacy outcomes in primary school age students. The importance of conducting this study provides opportunity to improve the educational system for our future. Through ethical consideration, the study will demonstrate a holistic approach and provide further insight into the already known literature. Thank you for listening to my research proposal.